just think about what Jesus went through in this week. One of his close friends, Judas Iscariot, agreed to betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, the cost of a common slave. Knowing what was coming, Jesus went to the Garden of Gethsemane, and he prayed so fervently that he began to sweat drops of blood. But then, led by his betrayer, the temple authorities came into the garden where he was praying, and they arrested Jesus in the garden. They handed him over to the high priest, and Jesus was falsely accused, yet he remained silent until he was asked, "Are you the Christ?" In which he truthfully admitted, "You say that I am, and that is true." And so he was sentenced with blasphemy. And so the priest spat in his face, and they beat him, and they slapped him, and then they handed him over to Pontius Pilate. And he remained silent as the priest and elders accused him before the governor. And he did not rebel when the criminal Barabbas was released instead of him. The Roman soldiers then stripped him naked and tied him to a post, and they scourged him. Scourged him means they beat him with a whip that literally tore the flesh off of his body. And they did that until he was near death. And then they untied him and they led him to another room, and they put a robe on him, and they placed a crown of thorns upon his head, and they mocked him as the king of the Jews, and they beat him with reeds and continued to spit on him. After enduring all that, Jesus was forced to carry his cross up the mountain, but he was so weak from his beating that he couldn't do it. He fell to the ground, and they chose a man named Simon to carry the cross the rest of the way up the hill. And after he got up the hill, they stretched out his arms, and they nailed his arms by driving nails through his hands and his feet to secure him to the tree. And as he hung naked on the cross, the soldiers gambled for his clothes, and the people mocked him and verbally abused him as they walked by, as he hung there, naked and exposed before the people. And yet in all of this, he did not revile in turn. Rather, he entrusted himself to God the Father. And we are called to follow Jesus.